Terrie Silverman. She has been an artist in residence at Beyond Baroque, and is the founder of Creative Rights Workshops. Terrie Silverman has been performing at theaters, at art festivals, and cultural institutions for years. And in her workshops, she really concentrates on helping people find their voice and their stories. She has also directed and helped develop award-winning solo shows that have toured internationally and off-Broadway. And her gorgeous stories, which are the performances from her classes. One is happening next week on August 25th at Beyond Baroque, and another one will be next Sunday in Pasadena on August 28th. That's about her summer workshops, and with all of her students. They're wonderful. So please, please welcome Terrie Silverman.
I waited to be a ninth grader my whole life. In my day, it was 7th, 8th, and 9th, and if you were a ninth grader, that meant that you were at the top. But now I was the new girl. I had just moved to LA, and I didn't know where my waist was. I had buck teeth, braces, no siblings. We lived in an apartment. My parents were divorced. Everything about me was different. And plus, my Dorothy Hamill wedge made me look like George Washington. And I was waiting for the thing that was about to happen, that I didn't want to happen, that I was dreading to happen. I was waiting for my father to die. Terminal cancer. And so the call came early in the morning. And the dread was over, and I was numb. And I didn't want anyone to know now that I didn't have a father, because that was going to make me even more of a freak. Ninth grade started 2 days later. And I attend Marina Del Rey Junior High, which is actually in Culver City, a school where all the teachers were afraid of the Chicana girl gangs. And I notice a girl in my drama class. She is wearing a green mohair sweater, green plaid bell bottoms, and I notice her because she was wearing the exact same outfit yesterday. And I thought, oh, did she get locked out of her house? Is she an orphan? Is she homeless? And so I ask her. And she tells me she just loves her outfit. And I thought, this is the coolest person I've ever met, Liz Newton. She had braces too. We ate Conky Johnson caramel pecan yogurt together while our teeth throbbed. We were exactly alike, except she looked like Lori Partridge. We became best friends. And she told me, before I met her friends, I had to prepare. And now Liz did not look like she ran with a bad crowd. She told me that her friends loved the Beatles. And I thought, well, I am not going to kowtow to peer pressure. I will not like something just to make people like me. No, I tried that with my last best friend with Chicago. I could not force myself to love Chicago. But I have an open mind, and I am fair-minded. So Liz brought over the Red Album, Beatles hits from 1962 to 1966. And so we opened my mother's dual belt drive turntable and put the stylus down. And within 10 seconds, something happened. All the waxy buildup from the bubblegum pop that I'd been listening to had been cleaned out, and I could hear the bass guitar, the rhythm guitar, the lead guitar, the harmony, the melody. Oh my God. It hit me. My body, my soul, the songs were exhilarated. It made me happy. It made me feel I'd never experienced music like this. I did not let Liz leave until we played all 4 sides of the record. And I met her friends, the Beatle girls. There were 4 Pauls, 3 Johns, 2 Georges, and 1 Ringo. And I was welcomed into the Beatle girl world. Everything revolved around the Beatles. We sang Beatles songs at lunch, where we had named the clump of grass Strawberry Fields. And I completely immersed myself. I loved the Beatles. I loved them as much as they did, and so I wanted to have a complete, full experience. Up went the Beatle posters in my room. I did research. I got magazines. I got books. I got newspaper articles. The Beatles made me happy. It gave me solace. I always had something to do and feel. I loved the Beatles as much as they did, and so I knew I was ready. And so the next day, as I stood atop Strawberry Fields, I officially picked my Beatle. And it's a very important decision, because you are declaring your love and your devotion forever. Of course, there was no question who I was going to pick. Whenever I would sing, when I put on the Beatle albums, at the right speaker, the voice that I blended with, that I sounded so good with, happened to be the very cutest Beatle. So what could I do? Of course, I was going to pick Paul. And so all the Pauls stood in front of me, and they greeted me, and we sang, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And it was official. I was welcomed in, and I was now going to learn the Beatle girl rules. Rule number 1, defer to your Beatle elder. This is the girl that is the most knowledgeable about your Beatle. Listen to her opinions. She will help you understand and love your Beatle even more, which of course is her Beatle too, which leads to rule number 2. Even though the Beatle you picked is yours, you must share, because the other girls love them too. Rule number 3, whenever something happens, good or bad, to a Beatle, you will either celebrate or commiserate with your fellow Beatle girl. For instance, if there was a picture of Paul kissing Linda, we were so mean to Linda. Bless Linda. So if we saw a picture of Paul kissing Linda, everyone would be really sympathetic and extra nice to the Pauls that day. I wrote Paul a letter. Dear Paul, I want to jump into your words, your lips, your Englishness. I talk to you all the time, and I did. I put Beatle posters up, and I would tell Paul everything that ever happened, every single day. Do you ever hear me? I wish I could really talk to you. I wish I could be your girl. I wish you could be here when my mother shrieks so I wouldn't have to turn on the bathroom fan. I wish it was 1968 right now so I could turn back the clock, become 21, have a short skirt with chunky heels, and become a secretary at Apple Records, and then you would come up to my desk. And you, I know, would fall in love with me. And then you would take me to Scotland and we would ride your horses. You are the only one I can even imagine having sex with. And I know that you would wait for a couple years till I'm ready. Please find me. I sign off XX, I put hearts, and I had just found out that if you like a boy, they should have a scent to associate you with. So I took my strawberry Bonnie Bell lip smacker, put it all over my lips, and then kissed the letter, and then I smeared Bonnie Bell all over the envelope. I thought, oh, I cannot wait till he smells this. Around the same time that I declared my love for Paul, I fell in love with a real boy. Alan Dennis, 9th grade. All the girls loved him because he was the star in drama. He had shiny bangs, a little button nose, and he liked the Beatles too. My best friend Liz loved him too, and we were very competitive. We would say things to each other like, when Alan and I get married, You can be our maid. If you want to look closer later, this finger has Liz's teeth marks that she bit into because I was holding the phone that Alan was on the other line with. That's how competitive we were. And so one night at the Fox Venice, and the Fox Venice used to play Beatle movies all the time, and it would be filled with Beatle girls screaming. And as John was singing Help on the big screen, I saw a hand floating in the air, and then I saw another hand floating in the air, and they joined. And that was the moment that I found out Alan had picked Liz. And I screamed even louder, and I hoped that Paul heard me. And thank you for your sympathy. It was devastating. But it was the happiest time of my whole life. Everything was exciting. I loved the Beatles. I loved the Beatle girls. Liz Newton let me be part of her family, and that was heaven for an only lonely child. I got to be one of the honorary sisters. I was so welcomed into Liz's house that I didn't have to knock. But I cried all the time. It was a tragedy that I couldn't be with Paul, that he didn't even know me. And I would tell Paul about Alan and everything that was happening. And I didn't realize until years later that these two epic moments of losing my father and finding the Beatles were related, and that all the tears were because I was grieving and I didn't tell anybody. If anybody would ever ask about my parents, I learned all I had to say was they're divorced, and the questions would stop. I didn't tell Liz, I didn't tell the Beatle girls, I didn't even tell Paul. And connecting these dots, I realized that I have something very important in common with my idols, with John and Paul. They both lost their mothers when they were teenagers. And they found music. I don't know if they were as silent as I was, if they ever talked about it amongst themselves, but they had to create. And I had to listen to Beatles music. I threw myself into it, and I realized listening is a creative act. It is a sacred act. Music is what got me through. I am still a Beatle girl. I still want to marry Paul. He's been married 3 times already, and not to me. But if he is, this is how much I love him. If he is happy, I am happy. And I want to thank him. I hope to meet him someday and tell him how much he and his music and the Beatles' music has helped me. But if you meet Paul before I do, tell him my story. And I just want you to know that was a Beatle bow.